Welcome back to Session 0, where I mostly discuss Dungeon World. Today I want to talk about custom moves and show off a couple of my own. Custom moves are a way to hack Dungeon World by inserting your own special triggers and effects. This chapter, Advanced Delving, which starts on page 343, breaks down three general types of moves. World moves, which are tied to an environment or specific location and sometimes the adventure at hand. Adventure moves, which deal directly with the adventure at hand. And class moves, which I'm going to cover in a separate video along with compendium classes. The book also uses a fourth type, which is mentioned but not specifically broken down in this chapter, and that's item moves. Strictly speaking, they're probably not separate types of moves, they're just ones that we most often see on items. We see these in Adventuring Gear on 326 and Magic Items on 330. There are two important components to a move. The fictional trigger, many of which begin with when you do something, and the effect. Page 343 has a great section about getting started with custom moves. You can start with a trigger if you want to provide rules for some specific type of action not covered elsewhere. You can start with an effect if you want someone to be able to do a specific thing. We see that most often in class moves. Casting a spell is the effect, so you start there and build a trigger for it. It also makes a lot of sense for an item. I want a one-time teleportation effect. What trigger and item can I make? You can also start with a mechanical idea in mind, but it's not really advised because it should be about the fiction. Page 351 and 352 list the trigger types and effects, and I like to combine them into a single document for easy reference. That's really all there is to custom moves mechanically. They can be fun to think about and make, but there are some pitfalls to avoid. The first is making a move overly powerful. A move should not, unless you're a cleric maybe, confer godlike powers to a character, and should be confined to a specific thing or subset of the same things. Discern Realities is a great example. None of the options you can choose are crazy powerful, and they're all different versions of gleaning information. So instead of making a custom move that is powerful, think about making moves which are just different than characters can already do. Next, piggybacking on my last point, shy away from making a custom move which is too similar to what a particular member of the party can already do. For example, if you have a wizard in the party, don't make a move that lets everyone cast spells. This is called stepping on the toes of that character, in this case, the wizard character. With that said, if your party doesn't have a wizard, or a ranger, or whatever the case may be, giving the players items which mimic the moves available to those classes isn't stepping on anyone's toes. The effects just shouldn't be as powerful as members of that class can command. Finally, and most importantly, a move must start and end with fiction. Everyone grab hold of me. I press the runestone to my heart, think hard about the druid circle near Alphalon, and yell out, Aporto! The trigger. Alright, says the GM. In a nauseating instant which feels like hours, you vanish into thin air, then collapse to the ground in Alphalon's druid circle. When you open your hand, the runestone is gone, and the ash which it has become blows away in the wind. The effect. The mechanical thing here is the teleportation, but it's written in a way so as to be triggered and resolved with fiction. Now let's look at adventure moves which deal with the adventure at hand. The book tells us they can move the action along, change the rewards, or transition from one adventure to another. They should convey information about and set the tone for the adventure. They're great at the start of an adventure to get things rolling, but also at the end as a replacement for the end of session move. I said in my video about bonds that at the start of a session I like for my players to recap the previous adventure and call out their active bonds. Doing this isn't an adventure move, it's just getting the players to remember what's going on. But between that session and this one, I'll think about and write the end of session questions for this session, but I'll include too many. As they're recapping, I'll move the options which they don't mention, either because they've forgotten or don't think they're important or whatever, to another list called Unresolved. Then, after they're done recapping, I present the now smaller end of session move so they know how they'll be getting XP. Those items on the unresolved list help me with two things. They become fodder for thinking off screen, and if they remain more than a session or two, they help me decide which dangers should be ticking away. Now, this is a form of railroading. I'm not railroading my players down the path of my choosing. I'm only keeping them on the rails of the path they've chosen. And that's just how I do it. That's not going to be for everyone. For a world move, I just want to give an example of one I've been using and tweaking for years, and which I mentioned in my 5 Things from the Abyss video. It's for an area called the Silken Paths in the D&D 5e adventure Out of the Abyss, which I've renamed the Webway. My move uses the when a character takes action under specific circumstances trigger and the choose options effect. It reads, when you traverse the Webway, roll plus dex. On 12 plus, you get all 3 options below. On 10 or 11, choose 2 options below. On 7 to 9, choose 1 option below. The choices are, you make progress, which is literally just 3 boxes they can check off showing their progress. You don't draw attention to yourself. You don't lose your footing and begin to fall. ... The region has a few other moves as well. One for hiring local guides, the Webwayers, which give you +1 ongoing while traversing the Webway. And 2 which have a slightly modified trigger and target certain character traits. While you are afraid of heights, this region is terrifying. And while you're afraid of spiders, this region is terrifying. These are moves about a specific location, and the main move can easily be modified by changing the choices. Even the word progress in the first choice can have different contextual meanings. It can be just about getting from one side of the web to the other, chasing or being chased by someone, or finding a missing friend by searching those 3 clumps of webbing, and many others. Just use your imagination here. So, custom moves are easy to create with a pretty straightforward template. You just have to be mindful of those pitfalls I mentioned earlier. Don't make them overly powerful, just different. Don't let them step on the toes of any other characters in the party, and make sure they allow you to start and end with the fiction. In my next video, I'll talk about class moves and compendium classes. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.